Let me join the chairman in extending my thoughts and prayers to the two individuals who were shot and killed last night outside of the Capitol Jewish Museum, just blocks from the Capitol building here in Washington. My thoughts are with their families, and as I read the stories of these two young people who were planning to get married, it is a heartbreaking episode. Violence has no place in our society and must be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. There is no justification, none, for hate speech, hate crimes, or anti-Semitism, whether from the left or the right side of the political spectrum. As I have stated before, we must condemn political violence and hate no matter the ideology that promotes it, and we must work together to protect America from this urgent threat. According to the most recent national hate crime statistics, the FBI received reports of 11,862 hate crimes in 2023, the highest number ever recorded since the FBI began reporting this data more than 30 years ago. More than half of the religious-based hate crimes were based on anti-Jewish bias, and we know that this data does not fully capture the increase in anti-Semitic threats, vandalism, and attacks since the horrific October 7 Hamas attack on Israel in 2023. This is a reminder to our committee, which has jurisdictional responsibility. We must continue to equip federal and state law enforcement with the resources necessary to combat anti-Semitism and protect Jewish Americans and to combat violence. This includes asking this administration to reverse course on its dangerous cuts to domestic terrorism prevention efforts, which leaves our nation less secure and America less safe in today's heightened threat environment. And we must support law enforcement programs focused on countering domestic terrorism and violent extremism. I hope that in light of today's tragic news, we can all agree to redouble our efforts on a bipartisan basis to confront this threat with the full force of the federal government and to protect the safety of all Americans. I hope, Mr. Chairman, that I can appeal to you and the other members of the committee to join me in asking the Justice Department and the FBI for an immediate briefing for members of this committee on the investigation into this attack. Before we vote, I want to say a brief word about the nominees. Mr. Cole, Terrence Cole, to be Administrator of Drug Enforcement Administration. As I said at his hearing, this agency he seeks to lead is in a deep crisis due to the administration's actions in the last 4 months. The Justice Department has systematically diverted DEA agents away from the efforts to fight the fentanyl crisis that is killing our kids in order to provide more troops for President Trump's mass deportation agenda. Even worse, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche has proposed combining DEA and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms into one agency. I strongly oppose this proposed merger. It would reduce the resources to address the critical goals of both agencies. The proposal is not yet another effort by the administration that does not strengthen but weakens public safety. This would only exacerbate the fentanyl crisis and make it harder to stop gun trafficking and other crimes. Mr. Cole refused to take a position on the diversion of DEA agents toward immigration enforcement or the proposal to merge the DEA and ATF. I respect his 21 years of service at the DEA, but his lack of clarity on this key issue troubles me to this moment. I'd also like to say a word about I'm going to mispronounce his first name. Maybe Senator Moody can help me. Gedasis? Saralta? Is that close? Well, I don't want to disrespect him by mispronouncing his name, but it is unusual public spelling. Let me say a word about his nomination. Now, here's what impressed me the most. He is a holdover. He was originally U.S. Marshal under President Biden, and the people in charge of making this decision trusted him enough to give him the same responsibility under a Republican president. That speaks well of him. He appears to be a man who takes his own job very seriously. And I think his response to some of the questions certainly told that story. I liked his background. His family was with him, a Cuban immigrant to the United States. He and members of his family have done well to serve this country, and I'm sure will continue to. We asked him some questions that are consistent with what the line of questioning has been for some other nominees to the administrative positions. And the basic fundamental question I asked him not once but twice and reminded him he was under oath is, would you follow the orders of the court when it comes to your activity as U.S. Marshal? And he said yes, unequivocally yes. There are other questions that were asked for the record that I'm sure he received some assistance and guidance from other people in preparing answers. But here's what it is, I think, the bottom line that concerns me. I think we understand from what happened last night and what we read in the newspaper that we are living in a heightened, dangerous environment in this country. Judges, for example, have been targets already. Sadly, in my own case, a judge that I appointed to the bench years ago, Judge Joan Lefkoe, had her mother killed and her husband killed in their home by a disgruntled litigant. The same thing is true in the state of New Jersey, and I'm sure Senator Booker can tell that story too, where a judge's son and husband were both killed. Thank you for clarifying that. Son was murdered, husband wounded, but not killed in their home. I continue to ask the judges across my state, and I hope each member will do the same, do you have any concerns about your own personal safety that we ought to address? Now, when it comes to addressing those concerns, the first line of defense is the U.S. Marshal's Office. So the obvious question is, how many people work in this office nationwide with the hundreds of federal judges that we have working for us in our government? The answer is 5,600 in the U.S. Marshal Service. And it's also true that weeks ago, this administration sent letters to 5,000 of the 5,600 inviting them to retire. I asked the individual, Mr. Seralta, would you be concerned about filling those positions? And he said yes, as he should have. We want to make sure we have good professional people. We also have a situation where this president has already removed security protections for several former officials who served in the first Trump administration simply because he was unhappy with what they said about him politically. The president has repeatedly attacked judges who rule against him, to the point where the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court made a public statement urging people to calm their rhetoric when it comes to these judges. We were all justifiably concerned with a demonstration outside the home of a U.S. Supreme Court justice several years ago. I was concerned not only for the conduct that took place there, but for the fact that his residence address was now known to the public and obviously has been spread around. I worry about that. There have been other instances where judges who made controversial rulings went through the pizza scam. You may be aware of it. Someone has been sending pizzas to these judges to let them know in a fashion that we know where you live. That sort of thing just not only breaks my heart, it angers me that any public official would be exposed to that sort of situation. So I take judicial security very, very seriously. I asked the Attorney General and the head of the FBI to respond to me by today to tell us what they're doing when it comes to judicial security, and no response came forward. You know, when we talk about our communications with the administration, is there anything more basic that we ought to share than bipartisan determination to keep our judiciary safe? For that reason, I'm concerned about the progress of this nomination at this moment. I am going to withhold my vote for Mr. Seralta today, but I'm not ruling out voting for him on the floor if we get a complete response from the administration about judicial security and whether they consider it important. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.